Catholic Bishop Robert Barron sat down for a conversation with Jordan Peterson and gave an extraordinary explanation of what it actually means to believe in God. Listen to this explanation, and then I'm going to finish with why this is so important in a time where many are confused about what it means to believe in God. Here's Bishop Barron.
We would say that God is not a being, but being itself. So the famous answer given to Moses, right? Ego sum qui sum, I am who I am. Moses is asking, what kind of being are you? He's trying to put God in categorical terms. And the answer there is so important because that makes all the difference when it comes to understanding religious language. Is if we follow Moses and his question, we will inevitably end up in atheism. Because if you think God is a categorical object in the world, eventually you'll say, well, I don't see this object and there's no evidence for it and I can explain the world without it. So that's why the answer of God in Exodus is so powerful, because he's saying, dumb question, wrong question. I'm not a thing in the world that you can name. I am who I am, which means I'm the prius, that's Augustine's language. I'm prior to thought and to language. I'm prior to being. I'm that upon which the categorical realm depends.
Right.
From that, if you get God is as Aquinas says, the active to be itself. So Aquinas says God is not en summum, highest being, but ipsum esse, right?
Right,
to
the
be
principle
itself.
of being.
Right. So if you say that, well, then right away you've got the central organizing principle of all reality, and then everything else has to cluster around, which is why we speak about God as being the creator of all things.
There's a saying that I really like from Jonathan Pageau directed toward modern atheists. I don't believe in the God that you don't believe in. And I think this explanation from Bishop Barron speaks to that. Modern Christians have dug ourselves into a hole because we have gotten so wrapped up in trying to prove God like God is a thing in the universe or a scientific fact. We've been trying to prove God exists like a table exists. And by doing so, by us trying to pull God into our physical reality and categorize God in human terms, we've diminished what God actually is, and consequently have made it fairly easy for modern people to say, yeah, I don't believe in that. If we can prune away the excess and clarify what it means to believe in God, not only will we revive our religious traditions, but we'll save millions of lives. People are so desperate for God, and this is why this explanation from Bishop Barron is so important. God is not a being within creation. God is not something that competes in physical time and space, meaning where God is, something else cannot be. The burning bush is a great example of this. It's on fire, but not consumed. What we call God is the mind, intelligence, logos of creation. It's the source of created things. Like, for example, the things that you create start in your mind. Your mind is the source of those things. God is not a being. God is being. God is. Like, you can't point to your mind, for example, and say, here it is, yet it's there. Christians need to remember that what we are talking about here, this God, this concept, was embodied in Christ. The human being Jesus embodied God. The human flesh and image we see is not actually God. God is within it. This concept we call God became lower to become human, to take on this human flesh. And what made the man Jesus important was what he embodied. We try to describe what we are talking about here in human terms, yet what we're talking about is not human. We are made in the image and likeness of God, not because of our physical bodies, but because of our mind. We have a capacity to create, order, choose, select, judge over worldly things like God has over all creation. We've made God less believable because we've been trying to put God into a box or category of physical being. We've been trying to point to God in our physical universe and say, look, there's God. That isn't it. And we need to stop doing that. The people of the world need God, not a dumbed down, shallow version of God that neither believers or atheists should believe in. We need to get back to and explore what God really is and be better at communicating what we're talking about.